welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca and I'm just leaving from Gilks Garage Cafe in Keith, and I've just had a fantastic chat with one of the owners, Keith, about the history of this fantastic little car spot, and also about his 60 for 60 challenge that he took part in to try and get experience in as many cars as possible before his 60th birthday. It's a fantastic little chat and I hope you enjoy it, and if you are in the area, be sure to come along and check out Gilks Garage Cafe. I'm a big fan because you know I love my Roots stuff, and this used to be a Roots dealership. But also it's really nice food, really friendly atmosphere, and just a great little place to come along to. Check their opening times on their website and on Instagram and stuff like that. They do have lots of special events on, but also their opening times is a little bit dependent on lots of different things, so be sure to check that one out. But for now, I hope you enjoy our little chat. So, I'm joined by Keith Gilks of Gilks Garage Cafe.
Hi.
Here in Keith. Tell us a bit about yourself, Keith.
Okay, so I'm one of the part owners of Gilks Garage Cafe here. The rest of the partners are my family, my wife, my daughter and my son. And we converted the garage 5 years ago now into the cafe as it stands. But before that, I worked here for 7 years when I left school, but before that had my career in the fire service.
And your family has owned the garage here for a really long time.
That's right, yeah. So it goes back to my great-grandfather. So he was a blacksmith in the village, in the market square.
Yeah.
And then when the horse trade died off, they needed more space because there was agriculture engineers. And so they moved up here to this present site, built a workshop just behind us. And that continued for about 10 years. I moved up here in about 46. And then in 58, we went to the motor trade, and it was a local Roots dealership. So in those days it was two-tier, so you had local dealerships like us where you come and test drive the car and order it, but we would pick it up from the main dealer. Ours was Hilton's at Rugby. Bring it back, wash the wax off, where we got our outside seated area at the back of the cafe. That was our little area where we washed the wax off. Did the PDI, which stands for pre-delivery inspection, and sell the new car to the customer. So that continued all the way through to the early 70s when Chrysler took over the Roots group and rebranded and then concentrated on just main dealers, the system that we've got today. So then we was just an independent garage until Dad retired in 1996.
And you did a little stint, but then when your dad retired, the garage kind of closed down and everything. And it was kind of car storage and all sorts of stuff.
It got
for
pretty
a bit.
sad, bless it. Until we got power of attorney over Dad's estate, it got run down. But then our hand was forced in a way, because in the early 2000s, you had to pay 75% of the rateable value of empty business property. Hence, so many got knocked down and housing estates sprung up and that kind of thing. But we couldn't bear to do that. And so we got power of attorney over Dad's estate, and then, as you say, stored, it was a guy who raced TR4s and 6s and stuff, and he rented space in the workshop, and his wife had a little art studio in our first area, which we call the servery. Yeah. And then eventually they left, and we thought, what we're going to do with it? Still didn't want to knock it down, or we had offers from supermarkets and housing developers. But my wife always wanted to run a little tea room. I was coming up to retirement out of the fire service, so I was looking for something to do, because quite early when you retire, I needed something to do. Excuse to get out of bed in the morning. And then when we talked to friends and family that was interested in the backstory, and so we thought, well, let's open it as a garage themed cafe celebrating the heritage of the site. And so inside, all the automobilia that you see is original from day one, because we was hoarders as a family.
So the petrol pump in the cafe is the one that was kind of put out the front.
That's right.
As part of the original kind of petrol pumps that went in. Yeah,
exactly that. So how we managed to save it, I don't know, because it's actually owned by Esso.
And they've not come hunting for it just yet.
So I hope they don't see this video. But there was originally 3 pumps, and then we had a 4th pump, which was the one that you see in the cafe, and that was selling Esso Golden. So that was 5-star. So that was for the Jags and the big Vauxhalls of the day and that kind of thing. And then that got replaced. We managed to hold on to it, goodness knows how. And as a kid, I always wanted to restore it. And so, the cafe was a great excuse to do so. And
Yeah.
while we was building and refurbishing the place, it was in our hall restored, which looked great.
Yeah.
I miss it, to be honest. But yeah, there's a nice little feature in the cafe.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another pump in there as well.
Yeah, another
isn't
pump.
there?
That's actually a reproduction. It's actually a cupboard.
Yeah.
But it's based on the 1970s pumps, the one that replaced the one that you see. And we got one, actually, original one, around the back of the cafe in our seated area for a specials board. So
Yeah.
we've still got one of those as well.
Oh, wow. And so, do you remember much of when it was a Roots dealership? Because obviously you would have been quite young,
I was quite
around
young.
all the cars and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah. So I remember school holidays being exciting when we used to have to go to pick up the new car from Rugby.
Yeah.
And come back and help Dad, get the wax off. And I remember where we got the bicycle rack in. That's where we sold second-hand cars as well.
Yeah.
There's a photo somewhere that we'll put on display next year of about 4 Avengers all lined up.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I remember that. But as a small child, you was really encouraged to come over here in the workshop because it's a dangerous environment. But
Yeah.
when the place was closed and stuff, yeah, I used to tinker about. I wasn't the greatest mechanic, and I think if my grandfather and my father actually thought about it, they would have seen that coming, because I made a go-kart once out of an old pedal cart, but when you turn the wheel left, the wheels went right. So
That's impressive.
I know, it's quite an achievement to do, really. I don't know how I do
Yeah.
it to this day, really, but yeah, so there you go. So I worked here for 7 years when I left school, and then at the same time I discovered the fire service, which my grandfather encouraged me to go, because he was in the fire service in the village at the time, before and during the war.
Yeah.
And then it just led on to other things. I went the whole time, and then
Yeah.
helped out on my days off.
So what of the Roots cars did you enjoy the most when they were in there?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So I got a great affection for 3, really. Hillman Imp.
Yep.
That was a cracking little car. On a Sunday, because we used to open all day Saturday and Sunday mornings in the day for petrol and stuff. And so Dad liked to escape the place and escape the village, so we used to go for Sunday afternoon drives all over the place.
Yeah.
So I've been in the back of a Hillman Imp for many an hour, Hillman Avenger, Hillman Hunters.
Yeah.
They're the 3 main ones that stick in my mind.
Excellent choices, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, Dad has Hillman Imps now,
Oh,
and
brilliant.
he had the Singer version of the Hillman Hunter.
Oh
so.
yes, yeah, I love the interiors and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got all the kind of paraphernalia and display and stuff like that in there.
That's right. Yeah, it's all original. So all the the enamel signs are from here, and then we tried to change the display in the front window. We've got the typewriter where we used to type all the bills, for example, at the moment, but we've got other paraphernalia from the day.
Yeah. And so what was it about the kind of garage cafe, do you think, that has kind of lured lots of people to come along?
Well, I think it's the originality that it's the same family that's been running it since day one.
Yeah.
And it's an original garage with original items, and of course that's fine, but you've got to have the product as well. So we make sure that we purchase locally sourced produce as much as possible, with of high quality ingredients, and it's that good old fashioned service, so that just as we were with the cafe, the customer comes first and the service comes first.
Yeah, and also you're really well placed being so close to the British Motor Museum, because if people have gone there for the day or whatever, great place to come along in the evening and grab something to eat.
Absolutely, yeah, we're very lucky with our location. Yeah, so as I say, about 4 or 5 miles from the British Motor Museum, stone's throw away from other places like the Bybury Classic Car Hub. Bicester Heritage is only 40 minutes away. Cafe and Machine is just down the road as well, about 7 miles away. So people often not just come to us, but they'll be coming to other events as well, and other venues, I should say, as well.
Yeah, and you've got a couple of events and stuff that you start doing in the evenings as well, don't you?
That's right, we've changed it a little bit now, so we just do pop-up events. One event that's really popular is an American night, which we'll reintroduce next year. In some ways that was too popular. Last time we did it, 45 American cars coming in. We're probably the smallest petrol head destination in the world.
Yeah, the car park's not massive.
So
it's just right for a Thursday afternoon, but yeah, a bit much for 45 big American cars.
That's right. So there was the place was just chock-a-block for American cars, and they parked on the grass, which is permissible outside, but it just got a little bit too busy. So you've got to consider the health and safety side of things as well, and of course the numbers. So there was about 90 people that came with the 45 American cars, because the American car community is very friendly, and they normally come with a car full. And other people came to look at the car, so we just got to make sure that when we reintroduce it, there's some measures there, just to limit the numbers. To
Yeah,
make it a
absolutely.
bit exclusive.
And I think you did an Italian night as well, and
That's
you've
right.
matched the food to the car themes as well.
Yeah. We did all that last year. So we had Italian night, with proper Italian food made by our Italian chef, and then encouraged people to come in or on Italian machinery, whether it's a car or a bike.
Yeah.
And then we did a British night as well, and again suited the menu to the British night, so it's pie and mash and chips and gammon and eggs and that kind of thing. And we did a French night as well. That was very popular too.
Oh,
With proper
fantastic.
French food. So that was on a regular basis, but it got a little bit too regular. So what we're going to do is just do it sporadically throughout the year.
Yeah. And whilst you weren't like a natural mechanic, you are a bit of a car enthusiast, and you did something pretty special for your 60th birthday.
Oh, definitely, yes. I know I'm not enjoying repairing them, but I enjoy driving them.
Yeah.
And so it's the magic of the cafe, really. People that come through our doors and things happen without being particularly planned.
Yeah.
So last year when I was on my 59th birthday, which happened to be the Sunday, Craig from Paddock Life Speed Shop came in a Lamborghini Miura. And so, I cheekily said, it's my birthday, any chance of sitting in it? Because, to see a Lamborghini Miura is one of my iconic cars.
Yeah.
But he upped the ante and said, I'll take you around the block. So he took me around the block in the Lamborghini Miura, which was absolutely spellbinding. And then, I came back and obviously was boasting and telling customers and friends about it. And the idea then was born, perhaps I should drive 60 cars on my 60th. And I was thinking, well, that's going to take a lot of organisation, a lot of time to do on my 60th in a year's time. But perhaps throughout the 12 months, if I'm lucky, I may be able to drive 60 different cars.
Yeah.
And that just took off. So it certainly got a life of its own. People were so supportive, friendly, and offering me rides left, right and centre. I could have done more, but on my 60th birthday, I think I've got it down here in my notes, if I just have it, just get you correct. I smashed it and I did 169.
Wow.
And then offers are still been coming in, so I'm up to 193 different cars now.
Oh my gosh.
I could have done more, but when people offered on a Sunday and we was flat out, literally I couldn't just drop everything and go up the road to go around the block. But the friendliness of the car community is
absolutely, yeah, it's really pulled through there. So what are some of your highlights from
there's been so many, so forgive me if you're looking at it. I'm looking at notes here because 193 cars, you need to jog your memory a little bit. So the bar was obviously started quite high with the Miura.
Yep.
And then it went on. If I could afford it, I would have had a Ferrari Roma as a daily, because I really love the aspects of the car. I think it's a great marriage between Aston Martin and Ferrari in looks.
Yeah.
And it's practical as well. People laugh, but it has got a decent boot, which not all supercars have.
Yeah.
And that was the third car I went in. And then the first time I ever went in a Porsche was for my 60 for 60. And what's nice about getting behind the wheel of these cars is that you realise why enthusiasts are so enthusiastic about it. So, I've been around Porsches like most of us have, from looking from the outside in, and they look great, they sound great, but when you actually drive them and you feel how they steer and how they perform, it brings it to life and shows you what enthusiasts are so.
Because some of these owners let you drive the car as well.
Oh yes, yeah.
So some of them you got to ride in, some of them you got to drive as well. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I should have made that clear. So the Miura was just a passenger. They wasn't going to let me behind the wheel of a Miura.
We'll let him off.
And the Ferrari Roma, I was a passenger. But majority of the other cars I'm going to talk about, I actually drove. So which is super. Mad of people, to be honest. I mean, because some of these cars are really, really expensive and rare, and to have their trust, and it's quite an honour that they trusted me to drive them. Some owners really encouraged me to do so, because normally, somebody else's car, you respect it. So
you'd be really careful.
I literally drove like an old man, like I am. But there was a couple of instances that really stand out. One was Lancia Integrale, and Adam, the owner, encouraged me to keep my foot down, to keep the old turbo, old school turbo spinning, to keep in the power band. And I would never have driven it like that. And indeed, it brought the car to life. And then again, like I was saying earlier, you can see why people are so enthusiastic about it. I've been in an Integrale before a couple of years back, and the chap was a sensible driver. We had a young lad with us as well, so he drove it quite sensibly, and I thought, well, what's the fuss about? But when you keep it in that rev band and people encourage you to keep the foot down as you go around these bends and things, it just transforms it. Another one was, it sounds like I'm boasting, but I'm not, because it's not all supercars, was a Ferrari 812 GTS. And the owner of that one, David, he had a hobby of racing, so he was a experienced driver and stuff. And again, encouraged me to drive it, to change down a couple of gears to get the engine revving, and to hear that V12 singing, naturally aspirated fantastic. V12 was fantastic. Yeah, that was another standout one. And there's others. So a lovely gent that we had recently, who was interviewed by Steve Cropley, a chap called Peter Taylor. He was one of the development and chief engineers at Jaguar before moving on to McLaren. And he's restored an E-Type from 1964. It's probably one of the best on the road.
Yeah.
And as you would expect from an engineer, did it properly, made sure I was on his insurance and stuff. And so he took me up the road in it first, just to show me the ways of the Moss gearbox and things like that. And again, in my head, I thought, well, he's restored this car. He's a little bit older than me, so we just go for a Sunday afternoon drive. But when the roads allowed, he drove it like he stole it, which really surprised me. And that was a fantastic experience. And I wasn't frightened at all, because Peter's been a test driver and he holds the record at Mara for going around there and the F1 McLaren. And then it was my turn. I didn't drive it anything like that. I wasn't going to risk it. But that was a special experience, driving an E-Type and trying to get to grips with a Moss gearbox and not crunch gears and that kind of thing. That was really super.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and there's been others. I mean, the list just goes on and on, from 2023 Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat, that was quite special. I fell in love with Bentleys. The first one I went in was a Bentley Brooklands. The carpet, wow, it was deeper than anything I've ever walked on. And then a Bentley Continental convertible, a Bentley Continental GT. But there's been the other cars as well. So like Steve Wallenham, the historian for Aston Martin, they drive his Austin Allegro. Well, that brought back memories, because that was one of our sort of like competitors almost in the Roots era days. And I remember the fuss about the square steering wheel when it first came out and that kind of thing.
Did you get to drive many of the Roots cars that you used to sell here? Well,
no, it's amazing, really. I mean, out of the 193 cars, I think there's been about 4 Roots cars. I mean, one that stands out is Hillman Hunter, from the which was the original car from the London to Mexico rally from 1970.
That's so cool.
That was absolutely cool. Yeah, so it's been restored to the spec it was in 1970. And of course, it's got all that provenance and history that goes behind it. So to drive that was, outstanding. I mean, how they did it, because it was so noisy, because everything was stripped back, of course. So that was really special. What else have I been in that's Roots? I'll tell you what, so as a kid, I mean, a lot of my friends and stuff, their poster vehicles are like Lamborghinis and Porsches, that kind of thing. Mine was a Adventure Tiger.
Okay, yeah.
And then, I mean, they're quite rare to see on the road anyway, but a chap came and let me drive his Mark 1.
Oh, wow.
So that was a bucket list sort of like tick in my book. And it didn't disappoint either. I mean, obviously, compared to modern vehicles, it's not going to fly like, a modern family car does almost, really, but it did go. And it was a superb vehicle. So to actually drive one of those was really good. And then other things from my past. So when I went out with Linda before we married, she had a little Micra, and a 16-year-old lad came. It's his first car. Obviously he couldn't drive it here, so he polished it up for the day and got his mum to drive it. And then we went up the road in that, and it was nice, to reminisce about Nissan Micra. So the eclectic mix of cars has been phenomenal.
And I think also in such a short space of time, because like those sorts of numbers, if you're like a car journalist or whatever, that's probably pretty normal to go through that number of cars over, 5, 6, 7 years, but to have done it in essentially 2 years.
Well, that's
pretty cool.
About 18 months, to be honest. I mean, 12 years was 169, I said, and then a few more up to now, wherever that is. Yeah.
So you've driven all of these, but what do you yourself own at the moment?
It's 2 cars. So the cafe owns a VW ID3. So it's great for the environment being fully electric and stuff, but I must admit I'm not a particular fan of this particular model. I'm pretty old school, so when you're driving in the dark I could do with switches and knobs and things instead of going through screens and slidey things and all that sort of business. It's probably a generational thing. I find the suspension really hard on it.
Yeah.
You know, if I run over a 50 feet piece I can tell you if it's heads or tails. It's that hard. But my runaround is a 17-year-old Audi A6, which I love. Typical of Audis of that age. It's got 250,000 miles on the clock, but it doesn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
And it's a plush van. I mean, you put the seats back at the back, and not only can you get a big size double wardrobe in there, you got more room to put other stuff in as well. So they're the two cars we've got. I used to have an MGC, but sold that last year because I just didn't have time to drive it.
Yeah.
And as you know yourself, if you've got a classic car, they need to be driven. The longer they stand around, the more problems you're going to have. So that went to a good home. And then previous to that, so we got first refusal to buy it back when he's finished with it, is a 1996 MX-5 Mark 1.
Oh, and with the headlights and everything. Yeah,
that's so cool. But again, with the cafe being so busy, we wasn't driving it enough and stuff. And so that's gone to a good home, and he's done a fantastic job giving it some love that we didn't have time to do. And then when James is finished with it, we got first refusal. It'd be nice to have it back because that's the same year as my daughter's birth.
Oh, nice. It'd be a nice thing to pass on with the cafe definitely. And everything.
Yeah.
And has the cafe still got the van?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how I forgot to talk about that. Yeah, so we've got a 1961 Common Cob van. That's sign written that we often take to the British Motor Museum when they have their Gaydon gatherings and to other events. As a promotional vehicle. So, yeah, that's right. And then it's not a runner. It's a Ford 300E van. So that was the original van that my grandfather had when we was agricultural engineers. They bought it brand new in 1956. But in 58, when we went into the motor trade, they obviously didn't want to just bin that and just get a new one. So they carried on using the Ford Thames van, which is a bit naughty, really, being a Roots dealership. But so it was nice to buy the Common Cob and put that wrong to rights.
Yeah, because it fits in with what the what the garage should have had.
That's right.
The garage has also been used for some TV stuff and that, hasn't it?
Yeah, again, we never saw it coming, but it's been quite remarkable, really. So not long after we opened, we was on Wheeler Dealers with Mike Brewer. That was quite funny. He was selling a TVR that they restored, but a few weeks later somebody rang up and asked what TVRs we got in stock. So just had to disappoint them. And then Dream Cars, recently Fifth Gear, here. Motorbike show as well, so it's not just cars, it's, we have a broad church of customers, and so we was on the motorbike show as well. And it hasn't been broadcast yet, but also on Car SOS.
Amazing. So it's really become quite a bit of a hub within the car community.
It's going well now. I mean, it's so humbling, and we never literally saw this coming. It was just going to be a quirky cafe on the edge of Kyneton, but it's talked about in the same conversations as people talk about the British Motor Museum or Cafe in a Machine or the Motorist and that kind of thing. So and it's been in the magazines, Classic Car Weekly, Octane, Magneto, all those.
So this is going to come out kind of towards the end of the year. What are you most looking forward to about next year with the cafe, with cars? What are you looking forward to?
Getting out and about, actually, because as we said earlier, it's a limited car park, so we can't get any more people to come to us, so we're going to come to them. So we started at the back end of this year, and we've got a little coffee gazebo.
Yeah, it was at Rustival.
That's right, yes, it's done Rustival, and we've done the Aston Martin Festival as well. So that was our dip of, toe in the water type of thing. Went really well. My son's really in charge of that sort of arm of the business, but it'd be nice to do more of those.
Yeah. What sort of shows, when you get a chance, do you like going to?
Oh, all sorts. Yeah, Rustival was great because it brings back so many memories. I mean, it's great seeing the supercars, isn't it? But I mean, unless you had a very fortunate childhood, you had no sort of real experience of them.
Yeah.
But can I say normal cars? But the everyday cars brings back so many lovely memories and stuff like that.
What have you not driven that you'd really like to have an opportunity to drive?
Oh, crikey, that's a good question. I wish I saw that one coming. I'd like to do some more route stuff, like Hillman Imp, and more of the route stuff that we used to sell, like you say, from that point of view. I don't know. I've done so many. That's a good question, really. I haven't done Rolls Royce. That'd
So
be
you've
nice.
done a few Bentleys, but you've not done a Rolls Royce.
Yeah, I haven't done a Rolls Royce. No.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's amazing when you stop and think. I mean, how many cars are out there, and how many makes and manufacturers and brands that out there I haven't done.
What is interesting is I tried to think of things that began with letters of the alphabet the other day, and there's not many makes that are E. There's lots of models that are the letter E, but not many that are.
No, that's a good point. Can't think of any.
No, yeah. I think there was a couple of lorry companies that came up when I looked into it, but not many at all.
That was cool. I did a couple of old lorries as well. A Leyland Comment was one. That was really good. They're so high up, and a Scammell. You always
get a completely different view of the road and everything.
And the noise of those brought back memories because it shared the same engines as buses and things like that. And so the noise of the engine just brings back so many memories.
Yeah. Have you done any buses?
No buses. No.
So some buses could be good.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. I have to get on to that.
Yeah, because I think you can drive them as long as there's less than 6 passengers on your regular licence.
Oh, that'd be cool then.
So
yeah, take some driving, I think.
Yeah,
Double clutch and stuff.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining me.
Pleasure. No, thanks for coming.
Make sure that you get yourself down to Gilks at some point, whenever you're in the area, or even make a special trip for it, I think.
And I should say it's nice sitting in a car called Peggy. That was my mum's name.
Yes, I remember that was the first time we met. You said that.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you ever so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed our little chat with Keith. It was a really great to get to know him a little bit better and get to hear some of the fantastic history of this great location. Again, be sure to check out their opening times and special events that are on their website. They are closed for a bit of a period over Christmas, but if you're looking for somewhere to go out for a run to in January, might well be worth looking out for. In the meantime, drive safely and happy motoring.